That should be a good one. Okay. All right, who's got the first question?
Let's start with you. I think we knew when Dana was getting into boxing with this venture, you were probably going to be featured fairly frequently. What does it mean to you to be able to help someone who supported you kick off their new venture into boxing?
Yeah, it means a lot to me. Dana's supported my career massively, since the beginning. And to be here now, with with Zuffa and the UFC, a company that I've watched since I was like 10, 11 years old, to be so close and to work with them now is unbelievable. It makes everything a lot better. It means a lot to me to be here, to be the first ever main event. There'll only ever be one. I always look back on the first UFC fights, and I hope sometime in the future, people will look back on this and to see all of us, everyone here involved, that's kicking this off.
As you say,
Hey, I just want to jump in real quick. So, in saying that, when Vargas came in, Vargas is like, not on the way, do I got to beat Walsh, I got to beat Dana White, I don't want him to feel that way. Whoever wins, you know how this, in the UFC, whoever wins, wins. We don't determine that, you do.
Well, in fact, I'll go on to you, Carlos, and say, do you feel like you're not just representing yourself here, but almost together you're representing the promotion of Zuffa Boxing, and do you feel like you're almost on a team here pushing this one forward to try and change the sport?
That was for you, brother. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, we've got translated. ¿Crees que en este momento no está representando solo tu equipo, tu intento, pero también la promoción por el hecho que esta es la primera vez?
Me siento muy contento de estar aquí, de representar a México en esa cartelera, la primera de Zuffa Boxing, y creo que vendrán más.
I feel very happy, very grateful to be representing my team, Mexico, and everybody else. And this is the first card of many that will come in the future.
And for you, Dana, right, we know your history with the sport of boxing. We know that you've looked at getting into it for a long time now. To finally be here on the cusp of your first event of Zuffa Boxing, how does this mean to you personally? How much does it mean to you personally to do this?
Yeah, so, me, this building, and the building next door, none of this would exist without boxing. And, I talked about it for a long time. Here we are, and, just everything in life is about timing. And right here, right now, it all feels perfect. The timing feels absolutely perfect, and now we got a lot of work to do. I talked a lot of smack about the things that I didn't like about boxing, but I also said, if you look at the UFC and not just the success of it, but the sustainability of it, I took everything that I loved about boxing and everything that I hated about boxing in how we built the UFC. So if it works for you, for the UFC, it should definitely work for boxing.
Is that what you hope to achieve here, right? Where you can come in here, people sort of are calling it a league. I don't know if it's necessarily a league, but are you hoping that you can make boxing more sustainable and more consistent over time? Is that the goal?
Listen, look at it this way. If you look at the NFL and what they've been able to do over the last 50, 60 years, I don't know how long it's been around, boxing's been around 2 or 3 times longer than them. So if boxing was built like a business, imagine where it would be today.
2 more quick ones for you, Dana. Earlier today, there were reports that Zuffa Boxing is in talks with Alexander Usyk. I'm curious if those are true reports.
The reports are that what?
You guys are talking with Alexander Usyk about
We're talking to everybody that we think are the most talented people in the world or have the potential to be the most talented people in the world.
Cool. And then lastly, I saw you reply to Maurizio Suleiman. I think he commented on a Boxing Social post. You replied to Maurizio Suleiman. Eddie Hearns had his things to say. All these guys are obviously speaking out about you coming into the sport. What are they not understanding about your ambitions for boxing?
Well, here's the thing. They were very concerned about the Muhammad Ali Act and all these other things. None of that is going to change for them. Nothing's going to change. Muhammad Ali, we're not changing one word of that. It's going to be intact. I don't know why. Now fighters are going to have more options. Why is that a bad thing? Why are more options a bad thing? It's not. You know, I expected it anyway. So, and I don't listen to fucking Oscar De La Hoya anyway. Anybody who listens to him's out of their fucking minds. So, I don't worry about him.
Question for the rest of the card. I'll start with Julian and we can work our way down. You know, we spoke with the undercard fighters earlier today, and a lot of them were very excited about the prospect of fighting at Zuffa Boxing. And the biggest thing they said was the activity they could have. They thought they could fight 4 or 5 times a year, as opposed to when they make it big in boxing, it's maybe once a year. So starting with Julian, I guess, thoughts on the promotion as a whole, and what are you most excited about with Zuffa Boxing?
Absolutely, that's definitely, it should be a #1 priority for the fighters. I have been in boxing long enough on a professional level where I had the security of a promoter and I didn't have the security of a promoter, and it's night and day. So especially with all the big plans that Dana, Harrison Whitman, Nick Khan have for Zuffa Boxing, I'm more than happy, and I can't wait to be the best fighter I can possibly be under the Zuffa banner.
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
La pregunta sobre todo hablaron de los, se habló mucho con los peleadores que estaban en las preliminares, todos están muy emocionados con el hecho de que en esta promoción tengan la oportunidad de tener actividad, porque por ejemplo, en general el boxeo te da 1 o 2 peleas al año, puedes tal vez pelear 4, 5, 6 veces. ¿Cómo ves esto para el boxeo?
No, para mí el boxeo es un deporte muy grande, se practica en muchos lugares del mundo, está lleno de boxeadores. Creo que Zuffa solo viene a sumar a este deporte, a hacer más historia, y estoy muy contento de formar parte desde el primer evento. Sé que van a ser muchos y sé que vamos a darle a la gente lo que está buscando. En lo personal represento a la sangre mexicana y van a ver un guerrero en el ring.
I think boxing is a great sport. There are history to it. There's so many boxers all over the world that are really excited about this. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for the sport to grow, and everybody's going to be wanting to fight for this. I myself represent Mexican blood, so I'm very proud of this, and there will be many more to come as far as the events go.
Austin.
I need some water. That sounds like he needs to fix his microphone.
Austin, same question.
O sea, la misma pregunta en términos de actividad, que el boxeo tal vez se da 1 vez o 2 al año, y Zuffa tiene la oportunidad de darles 4, 5, 6 peleas al año.
Mientras sigan promoviendo el box, yo creo que es bueno que siempre estemos los boxeadores activos, y es algo que viene a sumar. Adelante, estamos listos y agradecidos por ser la primera cartelera de Zuffa Boxing.
I think in boxing we all want to be very active. We want to fight as many times as possible, and I think this gives us the opportunity to have something like that. I think all of us are very grateful and very excited to be part of the first card for Zuffa Boxing.
You know, I'm just excited to be able to be a part of the first Zuffa boxing event. You know, I heard rumors and things like that being in the boxing industry for about 5 years now, that boxing was going to fade at some point. And, you know, it was getting to that cusp where it was about to fade. And, you know, Dana White came out with Zuffa Boxing and the promotion team, and Dana's whole promotion team and his whole team is going to bring boxing back. And, you know, I'm excited to be on the card and grow with the team and to grow with the promotion.
You know, it's nothing new for me. I've been active all 4 years of my pro career. You know, this is going to be my 18th fight in 4 years. So when they told me that, oh, they can keep you active, I'm like, great. That's what I've been doing my whole career. So, you know, being on the first event, I'm opening up the show. You know, it's going to be the Sugar Cane show. Can't wait.
Just one last one for Dana, the last one I have on the Ali Act, or the Ali Renewal Act. Earlier today, advanced to a committee. So I guess how soon do you expect that to go through before the president kind of signs it into law?
Do I expect it to go through?
I guess how quickly?
Well, today was a great day for it. I don't know if you saw, but the vote was incredible.
It was like 30-4 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, looking good.
Question for Julian. One fight ago, you were a big underdog against a, really heavily hyped prospect and provided that big reality check. You're still a slight underdog here coming off of that fight. What do you do to repeat that success of, upending somebody's early career?
Yeah, I understand the game and how those numbers are determined, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? I've been in this for a long time, so I know the inactivity. Despite the reasonings, I understand why they are the way they are, but I react real well under pressure. And this is exactly what I need to bring out the best in myself, and I couldn't be more excited for Friday night.
All right, and Kane, what do you do to avoid that same trap that Avius Griffin fell into against Julian in the last fight?
Man, that was a lucky moment, I feel like, for Julian. He had his chance. He was underdog. But, Rocky was underdog. But that was a movie. This ain't no movie. He and Rocky, and this ain't no movie. He's gonna see that. He says he does well under pressure, but we'll see. This is a different type of pressure right here.
All right, thank you.
Who told you to say that shit?
You gonna start? You gonna start?
Who told you to say that shit?
You gonna start? You gonna start?
Go ahead.
Be quiet.
I was gonna stay along the note of you guys, Julian Kane. That's a fun fight on paper. So when we consider this, the Paramount era, where you guys are fighting in front of a lot of people that maybe have never watched a boxing fight in their life. So do you guys see us? Do you guys feel like you have to set a specific statement for these new fans that are tuning in and seeing you guys fight for the first time?
Absolutely, and I know it's gonna be a fire fight. I'm excited for the fight. This is the type of fights that Zuffa is gonna be putting on. So I'm happy to represent the company as well as Kane. And you know what? We're gonna put on a great show on Friday, and this is what boxing's about.
Bro, you could quit all that. You're happy for this shit, bro. I'm gonna whoop your ass on Friday, and you know that. You know that, bro. I ain't no Avius Griffin. You still beefing with him, even though you already fought him. You already knocked him out, bro. You have to worry about me on Friday.
I'm flattered you keep your eyes on me like that, but it's all right. We saw everything we had to see in camp. Don't worry.
You saw what? You saw what? Yeah. Good boy. You prepared yourself for this fight. And you had to come to the PI for this shit. Early, too. Good boy.
Question for Carlos. We've seen you in there with big names such as Errol Spence, Tim Tszyu. Do you think experience like that's going to be the difference for you in this fight against Callum?
Has peleado contra grandes nombres, así como Errol Spence y Tim Tszyu. ¿Crees que esta experiencia, o sea, ser más experimentado, te ayuda en este momento?
Yo creo que sí me ayuda un poco. Tengo una larga carrera profesional y lo voy a demostrar el día viernes.
I think I do have an extensive professional career so far, and I think we'll see that on Friday.
And the last one for me, a question for Dana. You guys announced the signing of Jaya Patel. A lot of fans were excited about that. He said that he's excited. He wants to unify the titles. So just people were questioning how that was going to work, just given your guys' stance on unifying titles.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is sort of a work in progress. What we really want to do is, obviously these guys all came from somewhere. They had plans. They had dreams from when they were kids and first put on a pair of gloves. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure that these guys can do what they wanted to do, and we'll work with Jai and probably many other guys on stuff like this. I sort of came out a little vague. I don't like to let everybody know what we're doing until we do it. And, like I said, this is all a work in progress, and yeah, you'll see.
This question's for Julian Hammerhands Rodriguez. For those who don't know, you represent Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. It's a small town, very tough people. How did growing up there and being in that area help prepare you for this moment?
Just New Jersey in general, you know what I mean, the whole Bergen County. I grew up in a very supportive area, so I always felt like I was the leader of my pack, man. I always got to go in there and make my county proud. So that's what I expect to do on Friday and in the rest of my career. That's it.
And question for Kane. I see the tension between you and Julian. Where does this stem from? Where is this beef coming from?
He just said it himself. He came from a supporter community. He ain't like that, like he says on the gram. He ain't like that. I'm from Sacramento. If you know, you know. I'm from Sacramento. I ain't got to say much, but he ain't like that, and he ain't like that. He said it himself. I come from a supporter community. I come from the gutter. I remember 14 years old, 13 years old, selling tamales at the park just to go to tournaments. This wouldn't go through that shit.
You're right. I was 9 years old, ranked #1 in the fucking country, while you were out playing with Barbies. Shut your fucking mouth.
Mind you, I had my first tournament at 14 years old, and I sold tamales for that tournament. Talking about what'd you say? #1 at 9 years old. I won my first tournament at 15. This ain't nothing new, bro. Come on now.
Exactly.
You don't even know my stats.
There's levels to this.
There's levels to this?
We're gonna see.
Oh, well, you'll see. Everybody's watching. You'll see though.
And question for Dana White. Zuffa Boxing, you got your first big card on Friday. Where's Zuffa Boxing in 1 year?
In 1 year? Yeah, I mean, we're gonna, in 1 year, you'll see the difference in the, we have a whole new production team coming in. So when we did the Canelo Crawford fight, you know, the UFC team did that. We're building a whole new team as far as production goes. Again, that will all be a work in progress over the next year. We'll start signing more talent. The growth from 26 to 27 will be massive. Going to implement a lot of things that I always wanted to do production-wise with boxing. And then we had a production meeting today with a lot of great ideas. And if you think about what a well-oiled machine the UFC is, it took 25 years to get there. In 1 year, we will crush this thing in the next year. Thank you.
My question's for Dana. Joaquin Buckley recently said if Zuffa wants to create stars, they're going to have to use their UFC fighters in order to do so. Do you think there's any truth to that? And also, maybe could we see any UFC fighters face boxers?
I think there's going to be a lot of shit talking both ways in this thing. We're going to have to use UFC fighters to create stars. I don't know, man.
Could we see UFC
What does that
fighters?
mean?
I think what he's saying is that he wants UFC fighters to face boxers in Zuffa Boxing.
That I do not want.
Okay.
I didn't want that when I wasn't involved in boxing, and I definitely don't want it now.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Dana, Matt from Boxing Social. You've obviously started the UFC and branched off into things like slap. What were the emotions like today when you come up to the press conference and it's a start of a new chapter, a new era in boxing? Is it nerves? Is it unsure? What's going through your mind as you sort of start on this journey?
No, it's not like that for me. It's about, so as soon as these guys step in the ring on Friday, that's the end of the control for me. They have to go in and deliver the performances. I say this all the time, we're the bells and whistles, and I just want to make sure that all the bells and whistles are perfect. That's all I focus on we built the card, great matchmaking. I mean, a couple stats here. The whole card combined, the record is 227-9, right? The records. And then, top 3 fights, all undefeated. So with our first card, we focus on the matchmaking, bringing in guys that are talented and that we think have a future in the sport. And then we here at Zuffa need to make sure all the bells and whistles are perfect. And they won't be. And then we'll figure out what we did wrong and we'll get better next time. And then, like the guy before you said, where do you think you're going to be in a year? We're gonna kick some ass this year.
Let me just ask, there was a lot of talk obviously from the boxing world and the people who we interview, and look, you see the comments, we know you've replied to Maurizio Sullivan about obviously the legacy and the things that you want to change, things that you don't, but there was a lot of talk about the level of fighters that you would be signing. So how pleasing is it for you that you've basically signed a guy who in many people's eyes was top 10 pound for pound star in Jai Opetaia, and that's before the first fight's even been seen? Yeah, well, if you look at our track record with the UFC, it's the same in boxing. I want to sign anybody that we think could potentially be the best in the world or is the best in the world. And we want to put on the best fights that we can possibly do. With you mentioning about working with the sanctioning bodies, is it going to be difficult to maybe entice some of these guys in who have had dreams of winning a WBC title, an IBF, WBA, the traditional route? Or are you having any sort of hurdles with these conversations? Obviously, Jai's come on, but when you look at the stars coming through, how do you sort of change their ambitions from what they've seen growing up?
What's the question?
Do you know, for instance, a boxer, Dalton Smith, his dream was to win a WBC world title. You're now trying to sign fighters, sign these big names to come through. How do you convince them to come across and come down a road that's a bit different? Obviously, Zuffa belt getting involved. How do you convince them to come across?
I don't know. I don't know the answers to these questions yet. You know, we'll see how this all plays out over the next year. But I always just put my head down. We do what we do, and we just keep grinding until, you know, I don't know. We'll see where we end up and how this all plays out. Yeah, I don't know. I'll let our work over the next year speak for itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dana, just another one for you, kind of going off that, and you may not have a perfect answer either, but talking to a lot of the other fighters on this card at the media day earlier, a lot of them said they'd love to fight like 4 to 6 times this year. I'm sure a lot of you guys up there would probably say the same. What is a manageable roster size, given, you know, the ambitions of all these guys wanting to compete that often and trying to build up the names you already have signed?
There's nothing that I like to hear more than guys want to fight multiple times a year. It's one of my big problems with boxing is they'll come in and they'll put on a fight and they'll come back for another year. So in our style and the way that we build the businesses, the more active you are, the more money you make. The more active you are, more people know who you are, more people are interested in seeing you fight, and the faster you climb up the ladder and possibly fight for a world title. So I love it. As far as roster size, we have a number of fights that we're going to do this year, but if everybody's that ambitious and wants to fight, then we'll do more fights. I love fights, so as many times as we can fight a year, I'm in. Who knows? Maybe by the end of this year, we're doing as many fights in boxing as we are in UFC. Then it's a perfect weekend. We either go Friday or Sunday with boxing, and UFC's on Saturday.
And just lastly, I'll give this one to you and Callum. Obviously, there's only going to be one first event in Zuffa Boxing history. I guess, Dana, what's your message to all these fighters up there about, what they can do to entice the fans here? And I guess Callum and Carlos as well. Why should people tune in to this first ever event?
Primero de todo, o sea, ¿por qué la afición tiene que estar ahí pendiente y ver este primer evento? Serán muchos, como mencionaste, el primero de muchos. O sea, ¿por qué la afición debe estar ahí para este primer evento de Zuffa Boxing?
Porque creo que es una cartelera muy completa. Todos venimos a pelear, excelentes peleadores. La pelea principal, creo que entre Callum Walsh y yo, es una pelea enorme, por así decirlo.
Because great fighters are involved. These are great fighters. Great fights have been matched up, and I think people need to be watching this. This fight between myself and Callum, it's an amazing fight, and I think people that love boxing should watch it.
Yeah, and I think because what was wrong with boxing for a long time is there's always one big favor. Like Dana said a while ago, people think they're fighting me and Dana, but we're all Zuffa athletes, we're all under the same roof now. Everybody gets the same treatment, we get the same meals, we get the same access to everything. So Zuffa's really pushing for the fighters to be at their best fight night so that we get the best fights possible. And this is what you have. You have a lot of good fighters here that have been all treated the exact same all week, have had access to the best, the best facilities possible. So we're all going to be our very best fight night, and it's going to be exciting.
Dana, just your final message to everyone on the card of what you expect them to deliver in this first event.
We match made this card the way that we did because we believe, obviously with our first card, that from top to bottom, these are the kids that are going to put on an absolute display of what the sport of boxing looks like, how fun it can be, and that it's great for television. So I don't need to tell these guys anything. This is what they do. They're going to have a huge spotlight on Friday night. And like I always tell all the UFC fighters, we put the bells and whistles on, get out there and make everybody talk about you and know your name on Saturday morning. Any other questions? Is that the last one? One more? Go ahead,
Dana,
sir.
I have one. 2 years ago, Showtime, which is owned by Paramount, got out of both MMA and boxing. Less than 2 years ago, 2 years later, they get back into boxing and MMA with you. What does that say about you as a businessman?
I don't, yeah. Listen, I don't know if you did this on purpose to make me shit on Showtime. I was never a big fan, and I never really got along with those guys. But yeah, it's a good question. Yes, the guys who got out of boxing with Showtime are now in boxing with us, and obviously, it means a lot to me, and I appreciate the fact that they're betting on me and my team
And in a
to
big
pull this
way.
off.
In a big way.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I agree.